You're saying you're seeing the peak of the dollar. If we look at Ruchir's data, this is what it looks like. Every time the dollar rises, it's followed by a downturn. Look at those three, and you're now hitting 11 years, which is much longer than peaks that dollar has taken to reach. 11 years is taken, so you're saying we're going to have a downturn now of the dollar, which means rupee will strengthen in comparison, or all other currencies.
Yeah, I think that, in terms of the rupee has weakened significantly against the dollar over the last 75 years, as we last spoke about.
Yes.
But the rupee's depreciation against the dollar has been particularly sharp over the last couple of years.
Yes.
And I think that that's likely to slow down because the dollar in general is looking very expensive against major currencies around the world. Now, this is a very important graph in some way, that the dollar is the world's reserve currency, but it doesn't always rise. The dollar spends time going down, it spends time going up, it fluctuates against the major currencies.
It's a fascinating graphic, actually. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that the dollar has spent a long time going up over the last decade, but typically after it rises so much and it feels so expensive, the dollar spends the next few years declining. So I anticipate that the dollar's has peaked against most major currencies such as the euro, such as the yen, and that in the next few years it's likely to decline against those currencies. Also because the US now is running very large deficits, it owes a lot of debt to the rest of the world, and also what happened, I think last year in 2022 was very significant, that the US used the dollar as a weapon to impose sanctions against Russia. But what that's done is that many countries around the world, including India, are looking at ways on how do they reduce their reliance on the dollar, how do they trade with other currencies and other countries in their own currency rather than trade so much against with the dollar as the invoice currency. So these are changes, structural and cyclical changes.
Very crucial for policymakers here, that, okay, you're saying there's a long-term decline of the rupee against the dollar, but it was very sharp decline in the last 2 years. So while it might continue to be a decline, it won't be as sharp as the last 2 years.
Yes, I think that's the significant finding, and it's backed by the fact that it feels very expensive. So as this graphic shows.
Amazing actually that you've looked at that because of this expensive dollar, the US cities have become the most expensive cities in the world. And the rising dollar, you're saying, is the major cause. In fact, in the world's 10 most expensive cities, New York, where do you live? New York City is the world's most expensive along with Singapore. Then there's Tel Aviv, Hong Kong, and then Los Angeles, that's dollars. Zurich, Geneva, traditionally expensive. San Francisco, again the dollar, and then Paris and Copenhagen and Sydney. So the dollars made cities in America expensive. How do you manage?
Yeah, so I've been in New York for 20 years. It's never felt that expensive, and it's backed by this data. And in fact, I can't think in my memory when New York was the most expensive city in the world. And that's what's happened out here. So that tells you further that the dollar has become very overvalued, very expensive, and is likely headed for some sort of a correction.
Right. This is almost like the burger. When burgers get too expensive,
the burger index, or even the hotel price rates.
Right. This cities is more interesting because that's what people experience.
Yes, that's right.
So nobody should go to New York right now, right? That's what you're saying deep down.